Hi everyone, welcome to this video where we discuss chapter 16 entitled Writing. This chapter taken from the book The Study of Language, the 7th edition by George Ewell. In this chapter we'll be discussing the development of different writing systems and we'll be discussing examples from the ancient Egyptian language, also from the Sumerian writing systems and the Greek and different writing systems to understand how the writing systems have evolved basically throughout history. Here's a quick outline of the chapter. So we trace the development of different writing systems over history. So we start with pictograms and ideograms and we finish with alphabetic writing, which we of course are familiar with, and we have written English as an example. We also discuss English orthography. So let's start our discussion of the chapter. But before that, it's important to draw your attention that you need to read the chapter carefully from the book and also watch the video. So you need to read the chapter from the book as well as watching the video. So we'll start our discussion with defining writing. So what is writing? Writing is the symbolic representation of language through the use of graphic signs. So unlike speech, it's a system that's not simply acquired, but has to be learned through sustained conscious effort. So for example, children learn how to speak before going to school, but they go to school, of course, one of the reasons is to learn how to read and write. So this is something that it's learned, it's a skill that's, or a system that is learned, and it requires some effort. Not all languages have a written form, and even among people whose language has a well-established writing system, like Arabic, English, or French, there are large numbers of individuals who cannot use the system. So, for example, in Egypt, of course, Egyptians speak Arabic, they speak Egyptian colloquial Arabic, but not all of them are able to read and write read Arabic and write in Arabic. So basically, of course, we're talking about in writing and reading, we mainly talk about standard Arabic. In terms of human development, writing is a relatively recent phenomenon. So we may be able to trace human attempts to represent information visually back to cave drawings made at least 20,000 years ago, or to clay tokens from about 10,000 years ago, which appear to have been an early attempt at bookkeeping, but these artifacts are best described as ancient precursors of writing. So we cannot describe them as or list them as examples of writing. So actually the earliest writing for which we have clear evidence is known as cuneiform, marked on clay tablets about 5,000 years ago. About 3,000 years ago, inscriptions were being used in an ancient script that has a more obvious connection to writing systems in use today. We know that we must have lost a lot of earlier inscriptions on perishable material, but working from the surviving inscriptions, we can trace the development of one writing tradition lasting a few thousand years, with which humans have sought to create a more permanent record of what was going on. So cave drawings may serve to record some events, but they are not usually thought of, thought of as any type of specifically linguistic message. They are usually treated as part of a tradition of pictorial art. So when some of the pictures came to represent particular images in a consistent way, we can begin to describe the product as a form of what we call pictograms or picture writing. So pictograms or pictographic writing refers to a way of writing in which a picture or a drawing of an object is used to represent the object. For example, a form such as the one you can see here might come to be used for the sun. It's important to note that modern pictograms are language independent in that they can be understood with the same conventional meaning in a lot of different places where a number of different languages are spoken, as you can see in the figure, in the pictures. Whereas the images presented in the figure we just saw continue to reflect the physical forms of objects, we typically interpret them in a way that goes beyond simply recognizing those objects. That is, the picture of a cup, for example, doesn't just let us know that there is a cup in this location. That would be an odd interpretation because mostly we're not just looking for a cup, but also something to put in that cup, such as coffee or tea, and maybe something to go with it. None of which is included in the picture. So we actually interpret the images not as objects, but as symbols of the objects, with meanings associated with the symbol that may not be tied to the object. This leads us to the discussion of ideograms or idea writing. So ideograms or ideographic writing or idea writing refers to a way of writing in which each symbol represents a concept. For example, a form such as the one you can see might come to be used for heat and daytime as well as for sun. So note that as the symbol extends from sun to heat, it's moving from something visible, which is the sun, to something conceptual, which is heat, and thus it's no longer a simple picture. So this type of symbol is then considered to be part of a system of idea writing or ideograms. So the distinction between pictograms and ideograms is essentially a difference in the relationship between the symbol and the entity it represents. So the more picture-like forms are pictograms, and the more abstract derived forms are ideograms. So a question here is, what is the key property of both pictograms and ideograms, i.e. what brings them together is that they both do not represent words or sounds in a particular language. So what is the basic difference between pictograms and ideograms? Basic difference is between symbols that are more picture-like. So if the symbols are more picture-like or typically used for something visible, they are considered pictograms. But if the symbols are more abstract and typically used for something conceptual, they are considered ideograms. And hence the name ideograms, idea writing, so writing an idea. And now we move on to discuss logographic writing. So while we just mentioned that syllabic writing, as the name suggests, refers to a type of writing in which each symbol represents the pronunciation of a spoken syllable, logographic writing refers to a way of writing in which each symbol represents a word. So an early example of logographic writing can be found in the system used by the Sumerians in the southern part of modern Iraq around 5,000 years ago. Because of the particular shapes used in their symbols, these inscriptions are more generally described as cuneiform writing. So the term cuneiform, it comes from Latin and it means wedge, and actually means wedge shaped. And the inscriptions used by the Sumerians were produced by pressing a wedge-shaped implement into soft clay tablets that created a permanent symbol when the clay hardened. So the form of this symbol really gives no clue to what type of entity is being referred to. That is, the relationship between the written form and the object it represents has become arbitrary, meaning there are no rules on which this relationship is based. And this is, of course, a clear example of word writing or a logogram. You might be familiar actually with some of the contemporary or modern logograms in English, such as the forms you can see, $sign and the number 9 and at, where each symbol represents one word. So conventional abbreviations and the like are logographic in nature, because they are the symbol, just like the symbols for numerals, which can be read actually in any language. A more elaborate writing system that is based to a certain extent on the use of logograms can be found in China. So many Chinese written symbols or characters are used as representations of the meaning of words or parts of words and not of the sounds of spoken language. In some treatments, this type of writing is technically described as monographic because the symbols have come to be used for morphemes rather than words. It's very important to note, however, that Chinese writing has the longest continuous history of use as a writing system, almost 3,000 years. So there are some advantages and disadvantages of the Chinese writing system. Among the advantages is that to speakers of very different dialects of Chinese who might have great difficulty understanding each other's spoken forms can both read the same written text. However, one of the disadvantages is that the writing system includes quite a large number of different written symbols. So the writers are required to learn a lot. So the official list of modern Chinese characters for everyday use is actually limited to 2,500 characters, but other lists contain up to 50,000 characters. And of course, remembering large numbers of different composite word symbols does seem to present a substantial memory load, and the history of most other writing systems actually illustrates a development away from logographic writing systems. This brings me to the end of this presentation. Thanks a lot for watching. And this is just a reminder that this is the first half of the chapter, and there will be another video where we discuss the rest of the chapter.